welcome everyone to today's podcast. And I have a very dear friend that I've known for many, many years, but I'm sure if you're on YouTube, you will know her face because she is our media go-to girl about AI here in Australia. Kim Seeling Smith is a business futurist who helps organizations thrive through the rapidly changing world of AI and the polycrisis, where multiple crises intersect and affect each other. Kim has literally held a seat at the table with Sir Richard Branson for her innovative work around the future of work. She was named a top 101 global influencer on employee engagement, wrote the how-to guide on one employee, one-on-ones, mind reading for managers, and co-wrote a career development guide with mega author Brian Tracy. You will frequently see Kim on the Today Show in Forbes, Fast Company, Smart Company, CEO Magazine, CNBC Online, the Australian Financial Review, the Sydney Morning Herald, and many other print and radio media outlets. As a former professional accountant with KPMG, Kim is a rare individual who seamlessly blends her commercial acumen with cutting-edge future of work practices. Welcome, Kim. It's so lovely to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you, Michelle. It makes me exhausted just hearing about that. That can't possibly be me.
But just before you came on, you were saying how many, television slots have you had over the last 12 months?
Yeah, we were just talking about that. So I think I'm going to be on the Today Show again next Thursday, live in studio. I did a lifestyle change about 3 years ago, so I live in the country, but I will be in Sydney, so I'll be live in studio next Thursday. I think that's my 32nd on Today.
Yes, yeah, which is absolutely phenomenal. And it's obvious because you keep yourself so not just up to date, but in advance of knowing what's happening. Because as you mentioned before, AI and that future is looking at what's going to happen is changing so rapidly, more so
Rapidly.
than
Yeah.
ever before. So look, we've got some set questions, but I know we'll go on some tangents, including your rant on Instagram yesterday about employers watching out for their next interview over Zoom or Teams or whatever it might be. But,
Yeah.
but we'll get to chat about that a little bit later. Look, you talk about the three disruptions reshaping business right now: the AI revolution, the poly crisis, and the rise of the empowered workforce. That's a word that's been used a lot, but, and then it died off and it's come back and it's so important. For a hospitality operator, sitting here in Australia or, in America or Europe today, managing a club, a hotel chain or restaurants, what does each of those actually look like on the ground? Not in theory, but what are they already experiencing?
Yeah, it's fascinating because I think the hospitality industry is in many ways at the coalface on the front lines of all three of these. So let's take them one on one. So AI is changing how we do what we do. Well, in a hospitality environment, it can be a huge opportunity, especially for those middle managers, because AI can be running reports for them. It can be doing automated rostering. It can be taking a lot of that icky work that nobody likes to do. And I actually started my career in hospitality. I worked for the hotel industry for
Right.
4 years, and look back really, really fondly on that
Yeah.
time. And so I was involved with all different parts of the hotel, and obviously I've frequented hospitality organizations my entire life. So I think that in some ways it's a huge opportunity. In other ways, and then you talk about what's called embodied AI, which is the robots. As I said, I live kind of in the middle of country
Yes.
in regional Queensland now. And you go to our local sushi place, which is about 15 Ks up the road, and they have robots serving the sushi.
Wow.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So 2026, and I'll answer your question in a little bit of roundabout way. 2026 has become the year of agentic AI, meaning if you think of generative AI being the head and the heart of AI,
Right.
thinking about things, showing empathy, agentic AI is the hands. It can do stuff for us. And it's been a huge, huge boon in capability in 2026. 2027 and above is going to be the year and years of embodied AI. This stuff is becoming real. So
Right.
when you're in hospitality, you're dealing with all of the things,
Mm.
all of the AI things. So the opportunities is that we can automate the dull, dirty, and dangerous work, the 3Ds.
I like that. Dull. What was it? Dull, dirty, and dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, we can automate that. We can automate the dull, dirty, and dangerous work. And that frees up our time. It frees up our time to do different things. The challenge is that, and I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to the rise of the empowered workforce, because hospitality, as we know, is one of the hardest hit industries in terms of being able to find and keep people. It's a transient industry. It's always been a transient industry. Now, when I get to that disruption, I'll talk about what a huge opportunity we have because it is a transient industry
Mm.
in this world. But if you marry the AI disruption with the rise of the empowered workforce, that disruption, what you find is that you find a group of people who are fearful. They're
Right.
fearful of their jobs.
Mm.
So the opportunities that AI is providing by taking that dull, dirty, and dangerous work off our plate is also challenging us because it's really forcing us out of our comfort zone to do the more interesting things. But a lot of us, especially if we've been in our roles for a long time, even with different companies, but if we've been doing the same thing for a long time, it becomes part of our identity and part
Yes.
of our purpose. And AI is challenging our identity and purpose. So that disruption challenges and opportunities,
Yes.
clearly.
Yes.
If we move to that middle circle, I'm going to call it because my model is a circle. If we move to that middle circle, which is the polycrisis. Well, what's the polycrisis? Well,
Mm.
brains much smarter than I coined that term. And I think it's really descriptive for the point in time where we are, where all of these big things are happening.
Mm.
So we've got, wars in the Middle East. We've got, pardon me, we've got wars in the Middle East. So we've got climate change. We've got the fuel prices going up, which is affecting this industry tremendously. We've got, especially fertilizer.
Yeah.
Restaurants can't get food.
Mm.
We've got, the cost of living crisis that has been around for a while. All of these things are happening, these
Mm.
big societal things. So for the hospitality industry, well, for any industry, the outcome of this is twofold. Number one, consumer demands are shifting rapidly.
Yes.
And the example that I give in this is actually an example that goes back to the hospitality industry. And I say this from stage every single week when I talk
Mm.
about these three disruptions is, do you remember in 2019 here in Australia when plastic straws just disappeared
Yes.
from the cafes, right?
Mm. Yes.
Yeah. I
Mm.
mean, one day you were using plastic straws and one day you were using paper straws. And I'm a scuba diver, part of the reason I live in North Queensland. So I was applauding that. But I remember thinking to myself at the time, what if I were a manufacturer of plastic
Yeah.
straws, a
Mm.
small business? How would I cope?
Mm.
So what we're seeing, and in the States, we've seen a huge backlash against many iconic brands, including Bud Light,
Mm.
for organizations that make moves, and I'm not telling you which side of the political spectrum I fall on, but organizations that make moves that are contradictory to a certain people's set of values.
Right. Yes.
So, because of all these things happening, companies are having to be very innovative, to be very agile, to react, and their consumers can shift their desires, their buying habits very, very quickly.
Mm.
Again, we've seen restaurants being boycotted. We've seen,
Yes.
and again, more in the States than in Australia, but and in Europe, quite frankly. But there's a huge, huge backlash from consumers when the companies that they buy from do not behave in a way that they, the arbiter of, their value set,
Mm.
do not deem necessary. The second piece of that is that people are exhausted.
Yes. Yes.
People are exhausted, people are frustrated, people are angry.
Mm,
And so there's this low level simmering.
mm.
And I know that you guys in hospitality are seeing it with your customers and
Yes.
also with your employees.
Mm,
So you have these two disruptions. And in order to overcome the challenges and seize the opportunities from those two, you've got to have the right people in the right roles doing the right things.
yes, that's right.
Enter the rise of the empowered workforce. I need to put this straw someplace where I don't hit it. Enter the rise of the empowered workforce,
Mm,
which is a combination of a critical skill shortage, which we've had in hospitality for decades,
yes.
running into a generation led, but not exclusive, reprioritization of what work looks like, what they will put up with.
Definitely.
And
Yes.
those two factors together means that the employment, the talent space is really, really challenging,
Mm.
especially in hospitality.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I know we want to talk about this in more depth because this is what we're always hearing, from those in the hospitality industry is the Gen Zs. And we don't want to just put them in this category of generational block there, but they are coming in, and you're quite correct, Kim. It's always been a transient, it's that usually that first job that somebody will get from school, or perhaps somebody even re-entering the workforce who
Yeah.
hasn't worked for
Yeah.
many years, whether it's out the back scrubbing pots or it's pouring cocktails or serving or, whatever it might be. But what we're trying to get across to them that there is this wonderful opportunity for long-term professional development, and you can go from picking up glasses or sharpening the Keno pencils into being a CEO, not only of major venues here, but anywhere in the world. But it's showing them that, and that they've
So
got to learn the little things.
this is the first mistake, Michelle, and I'm going to pick on you a little bit because I
Good.
know you so well. This is the first mistake. That's old school thinking.
Right.
Old school thinking is that people want to come into the workplace and they see that opportunity, that golden light on the hill to be the CEO or to do whatever they want to do. Gen Zs don't want that.
Right.
They don't want that. That may fit in with their overall career trajectory, but it's not a career trajectory. 72% of Gen Zs have side hustles. Now, that side hustle could be another job. So they have their main job. If they have a main job, they
Mm,
have their main job. They could potentially have another job, which could be in the same industry or a completely different industry.
mm,
They invest in shares or stocks in the States. They invest in property. They know they have inherited a world. This is the first generation, well, arguably the second generation, because don't quote me on these stats, but I think the millennials are the first generation that is not going to do better than their parents' generation.
yeah.
So baby boomers expected to do better than their parents' generation and have. Xers, yes, same thing. Gen X, same thing. Millennials are I was talking to somebody about this the other day. The millennials are going, hey, wait a minute. I have these goals and I'm not reaching them. So
Yeah.
there's a cognitive dissonance with millennials. Gen Zs, they're like, I never had those goals. I knew as soon as I was aware that I'm not going to own a house anytime soon.
Yeah.
I'm not, the lives that they saw their parents and grandparents live,
Mm,
they knew, they strongly feel are not accessible to them,
yes.
which again, challenge and opportunity. The challenge is for employers, if we expect them to have the same attitude towards work that we did, we are going to be sorely, sorely disappointed. However, if we take what you said and just tweak that a little bit, we're not giving them opportunities to learn for that next promotion or that next opportunity. We're giving them a series of skill sets that will help them in their career, regardless of whether it's in a job, in a company, owning their own business. They're the most entrepreneurial generation in
Yes.
the market right now,
Mm,
or doing a combination of things. So we need to have a very, very different attitude towards our Gen Z employees. And by the way, the Gen Z attitude is infecting the other generation's attitude, especially the boomers who
Yeah.
are not wanting to go retire and ride off into the sunset.
That is
So
so
if
very true.
so if we can equip them with
Mm.
skills, so I'm talking very, very differently to my clients about training and development. As a matter of fact, the AFR here in Australia, the Australian Financial Review, runs a best places to work um, uh, survey
Yes.
every single year. And this year, for the first year, they discovered that there was something different in what drove employee engagement and motivation. Career development has always been one of the top three usually.
Mm.
But this year, it's not career development in terms of a trajectory. It's giving the skills that will help me stay relevant today and prepare me for tomorrow. Not 3 years from now, not 5 years from now. I want to outrun AI and I want to learn some things that will help me.
Mm. And you're correct on all those levels, because what we're seeing in hospitality is Gen Z come in and they're saying within a few weeks, I need more. And the conversations I'm having with CEOs, we've got to be giving them projects. We've got to be giving them those extra skills, because as soon as we lose them forever out of the industry. And this is where I suppose where I'm saying is give them that idea that they can go for that. Maybe not now, but if we don't show them that there is a path, then they just move on to something else.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's a fantastic industry. And you can be anything. You can start off scrubbing pots and you can end up running major hotels overseas or managing them, even if it's your own company. And I agree totally with you, Kim, that they have got these side hustles, and it's not just, you and I have been running our own businesses now for multiple decades.
Yes.
Is that when I'm doing, when I'm talking to a team, I'm saying to them, particularly with the middle managers, is this what you're learning now from me is not just for you in your job tomorrow and today. It's about you could be starting up your own company in a few years' time, or even you may be doing that, and that you can bring that over. The other thing I've been seeing with Gen Zs is this community spirit. Now, it doesn't always start off with the Gen Zs. It's usually somebody in middle management or senior manager, different ages. It really doesn't. But that connection of connecting with community, building that space of feeling belonging, we see that now. And we've talked about,
Yeah.
particularly register clubs have been doing that for multiple decades, but we're seeing the growth and the trajectory of that now, going into schools, helping, different organizations, local. The young ones are really getting behind it. It takes them a while,
Mm.
but once they do, my goodness. And it's a big way for them to look at, I want to work for that company.
Yes.
What are your
Yes.
thoughts?
No, absolutely. And I think that goes back to people want purpose. And this is what I wrote this book about back in 2014. Don't go out and buy the book. It's horrendously out of date. I keep saying that I'm going to update it. And I have a white paper in case anybody wants to reach out to me for the white paper. Happy to send that free of charge, which goes through these 9 currencies. So I was a recruitment consultant for 15 years prior to starting this business. I interviewed over 5,000 people, and this was my very first model that I went to market with when I started this business. I reverse engineered those 5,000 exit interviews and turned into the 9 currencies of choice. I pressure test these 9 currencies every single year against the latest research, like the AFR
Yes.
survey that I just mentioned. And purpose and values they are at my number 12 on the circle on the clock face for a
Yes.
reason, because they're number 1, and it's gotten stronger, only stronger since COVID.
Yes.
So especially in the light of disruption, people are feeling like they want to both disruption and the polycrisis.
Yes.
People don't feel like they have control over much,
Mm.
but they have control over giving back to the community and the
Yes.
community that they connect with. And I think
Mm.
that that's what drives that behavior. But I'm seeing that too. I absolutely agree
Yeah.
with you.
And it's lovely to see, because they get that opportunity to really be proud of where they work as
Yes.
well. And then they have that stronger connection, particularly in hospitality, because it's quite an odd workplace because you may only work with that person once a week or once a fortnight. So
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
you're like ships in the night, going all over the place, particularly when they're in that management role. So when they can do something externally, we find them building that connection outside when they come into the
Yeah,
workplace.
it's
Then they're
stronger.
not saying,
Yeah.
well, oh, it's Friday night. I really don't want to be on. I'm going to. Now, this is not for all cases because I know a lot of my listeners will say, oh, they'll still only work when they want to. And that's true. But on a Friday night, perhaps now what we're seeing is instead of them going, I couldn't be bothered, I'm not going to go in, they're thinking to themselves, hey, wait on. If I don't come in tonight, I'm going to be letting Jack and Mary down that
Yes.
I had a good time
Yes.
with at the school or
Yes.
whatever. So, I don't know whether we see that being said outwardly, but I hope and I feel that it's being said with internally, and that's reducing it. But I
I
don't know.
can guarantee that. I can
Yeah.
guarantee that, Michelle. And the reason why is when I was spending a lot of time with this Mind Reading for Managers program behind me, that was one of the things that I taught the managers that I was teaching to use this currencies of choice. I call it the 9 keys for short. So this
Yes.
9 keys wheel. When I was teaching them to use that to increase motivation, productivity, engagement, the list goes on, and I
Yes.
can provide you case studies. One of the things, because from time to time, you always have to have tough conversations with people,
Yes.
right? It
Mm.
just is what it is. And again, old school thinking, we go back, we are conditioned as managers to go back to that old, you've got the carrot and you've got the stick. That
Yes.
stick, if you don't do your job, young lady, right? Well, that may get you short-term behavioral change, but it won't get you long-term behavioral change.
Mm.
So when I was working with these managers, I would work with them on what are the consequences. Not you'll give you a verbal warning. I can't speak. Give you a verbal warning and then a written warning. What are the consequences to your team members?
Yes.
When they added that in,
Mm.
oh my gosh, behavioral change would happen naturally. So
Mm.
it sounds like what you're describing is that happens just naturally from these interactions that they have outside the workplace. I can absolutely see that. I think that there's some strong correlation between
Yeah.
that.
Because they're starting to feel they have that connection with that person, and they're actually going to be letting a person down,
Yes.
not
Yes.
just the roster. But of course, I'm sure my listeners say, yes, well, why didn't five of them turn up last night or whatever? And it happens. And,
Yes.
people are individuals and we can
Yes.
only hope that they grow. And it really is a wonderful industry to be in. It gives them those opportunities, but we do have to be showing them those skill set, and nobody is waiting around for Fred or Mary to, finally retire. If we don't give them those opportunities
Right.
now, we lose them to many other industries. And we saw that during COVID,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think there's also a possibility or an opportunity of thinking laterally about those baby boomers who don't want to ride off into the
Yes.
sunset.
Mm.
Myself included, I am a prime example. I have said, because I so loved my time in working in hotels.
Yes.
And I've always said that when I become old and crusty and that, I don't want to do this work anymore, I'm going to go find the front office of a hotel and work behind the front desk for a while.
Yes, yeah, because you're having that engagement with people, and I think that's
Yeah.
what is so
Yeah.
lovely, and that's what the hospitality offer us. But right at the start, you were talking about the change of behaviors
Yes.
of customers, and that's what we do see a lot. A lot of that stress because of
Yeah.
financial
Yeah.
situations, world,
Yeah.
all those crises that are happening,
Yeah.
out there that we can't help out, hold and control ourselves, then comes out in people's really poor behavior. And it's disappointing, and it's beyond resilience when you say, oh, be resilient, don't let them get to you. It is darn hard when you train your best and
Without a doubt.
somebody's throwing food at you or swearing at you or just getting really upset, and you
Yeah.
just sort of think, I'm trying to do my best. And so you can see why a
Hmm.
lot of people go, oh, I don't really want to be in that business. But I
Hmm.
think what we have to look at, Kim, is that that's a really small percentage.
Hmm. Yeah.
Most of the people that come into the hospitality industry go to their club or go to the restaurant or their cafe or their hotel. They're going to have a really nice time.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
and it's how you approach it. And I think that's what's important. You're dealing with somebody who has feelings.
Yes.
you know.
Yes, and you never know their backstory,
You
and they
never
may
know.
have
That's
saved,
right.
if you're working in a, in a nice restaurant, they may have saved for months
Yeah.
for a dinner out
Yeah.
for, and so they're under stress because they
Mm.
want to show their partner a good time or provide a good family experience, or yeah,
Yes.
you just never know. I learned that. Thinking back on it, I've worked a lot in hospitality because my senior year in high school, I also worked as a waitress. I was a terrible waitress. They used to call me Crash because I would drop so many things. Yeah, it was awful. I'd forgotten about that. Maybe I blocked it out.
Oh, but I will admit for my listeners, if you haven't been to America, when you go to, a function in a conference center and you see those staff coming in with those massive trays and they've got holding it with one hand and they may have, more than 12, 15 plates on that. I think
Yes.
to myself, my goodness,
How
their
do they
wrist
do that?
must absolutely be tortured as they get older. And things have changed. Although I was only in a conference, recently in America and they were still there, but they didn't have as many. But you're right. Yes, Crash. I can carry two plates. I can talk. That's what we're good at, Kim. We're
That's
good.
exactly what we're going to. With me, it was mostly because I worked at a brand that I'm not even sure exists, Swenson's ice cream.
Right.
And so I was, often carrying one milkshake to the table and it would mysteriously leap off my tray. I don't know how that happened.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that have held that tray with the cocktail, the bottle of beer, the schooner, and then you could see it particularly, in a restaurant, and there's a group of you, and you've got a new team member, and they come up and you think, please do not take off the heavy bottle because everything's going to tip. And instead of thinking, oh, let me help you, do that. But this is where it's quite interesting, where people may fudge what their skill set is. And
Yes.
let's have a chat about your Instagram
Yeah.
post yesterday where you ranted about the use of AI with interviews. So can
Yeah.
you share that? Because I'm sure my listeners go, you've got to be kidding, but then they'll probably think, yeah, that's probably definitely what's happening.
So I heard this, I don't know, a few months ago, and I just kind of blocked it out, going, that can't possibly be true.
Mm.
Because I so didn't want it to be true.
Yeah.
And so let me preface this by saying that I am a huge proponent of AI. I think AI can be the thing that helps us solve all of the challenges that we have in the world.
Yes.
What I'm terrified of is human beings' use of AI.
Mm.
So let's get those two things straight, first of all. So when I heard about this, I thought, surely not. And then over the weekend, so my sister lives in Chicago, and she does something. Well, she's in the HR space, and she's excellent at what she does, and she's looking for a new role. But she's been of two minds. Should I go for fractional work, which she's been very successful in obtaining fractional work, or should I get a job? Should I become a full-time employee?
Mm.
And she started noticing a pattern. And the pattern was every single thing that she'd apply for a full-time role was rejected, offhand rejected. For these fractional roles, she was very successful in scheduling interviews and having conversations. She's gotten at least one role, if not more. And so she reached out to me over the weekend, just offhand comment, and said something about, I'm just going to concentrate on the fractional roles now because it's
Right.
just too hard to find a full-time job.
Yeah.
And I went, huh, I wonder why.
Mm.
And then I just kind of had that in the back of my mind. And I was sitting on my patio scrolling my news feed, and I saw some Stanford research that says that a lot of companies are using AI screening tools, and it's just a handful of AI screening tools, and one of them gives you a score. And that score can follow you for almost a year.
Wow.
So if you apply for a job, regardless of your seniority level, and you apply to a company who's using these AI screening tools, and let me get to that in a second. If you're using these AI screening tools, then and you're rejected because you're not a fit, the next time you apply, you may be the perfect fit, but because you're carrying that score, it's an automatic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I went, wow, that's problematic. Okay, let
Yes.
me let me do a deep dive into AI and interviewing because
Mm.
that's one of the things that I've done from time to time. I don't spend a lot of time teaching interview skills because quite frankly, everybody needs to learn to interview, but nobody recognizes that they need to learn to interview or wants to pay for people to help them with it, but it's a problem. So I thought, all right, let me do a deep dive into this. And I remembered what I had heard a few months ago, which is that there are apps. So you and I are on a Zoom call right now,
Yes.
right? Let's say this is an interview of a different kind. You're interviewing me for a job.
Mm.
I could have an app that you wouldn't see that's just an overlay on my screen.
Mm.
You ask me a question, and the AI listens and puts the answer as a teleprompter.
Oh, so the AI is actually listening at that same time. My gosh, and it's that quick.
It's that quick. It's real time. The AI is listening. So candidates have always done a better job of preparing for interviewers than hiring managers.
Yes.
I mean, that's been true. I started in recruitment in, I'll show my age, 1994. And that's been true since I was a baby recruiter in 1994.
Yes.
Candidates have always done a better job of preparing for interviews, which is why so many hiring managers make bad hires.
Yes.
They do not know how to screen their people.
Mm.
Fast forward to 2026, where you've got an AI tool. So I went on a rant, and the rant was specifically on, if you're a candidate, don't do this. It's cheating. But also, more than that, say you get the job.
Mm.
Woohoo! Is it the right job for you? Who
Exactly.
knows?
Yes. Yes.
Who knows? Because you're not going through the valuable experience of having a conversation with a hiring manager, finding out about them. You're just answering questions from some AI. So,
Yeah.
hiring managers, you absolutely need to be aware of that, which
Yeah.
is why I say, so in the hospitality industry, because I've had a lot of hospitality clients, Muffin Break here in Australia,
Mm.
Food Co., which owns Muffin Break, Jamaica Blue, and Dreamy Donuts. They were a very, very big client of mine about 10 years ago, actually. And they have one of the best interviewing processes that I've ever seen in hospitality. Because, and this was before the virtual interviews were
Yes.
popular. They're
Mm.
probably doing some virtual interviews now. But you always want to match virtual interviews with in-person interviews if you can,
Mm.
even if it's not you. So if the candidate's in a different city, but you're a large company, have somebody from that other city meet them in person and ask them the same questions, or at least a
Right.
subset of the same questions. And
Yes.
then you want to put them into an on-the-job situation
Mm.
to really master their skills. Food Co. did a marvelous, marvelous job in that.
Mm.
So, as hiring managers, we have to be aware that these AI technologies exist
Mm.
and that candidates have now incredibly good tools to game the system.
Mm.
But also, as hiring managers, we also have to recognize that these AI screening tools. Now, my rant actually, I can't remember if I said it in my Instagram rant, but I also wrote a very lengthy LinkedIn article about both sides of the equation.
Mm.
And what I said about AI screening tools, I get it. They save time. It is soul destroying. Having gone through hundreds of thousands, and no, I'm not being hyperbolic,
Mm.
hundreds of thousands of applications and resumes, I
Mm.
can tell you that it is soul destroying work.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
is boring work,
Mm.
and it just is not. I haven't found anybody who likes to screen resumes.
Yeah.
And unless a human eye looks at that resume,
Mm.
it cannot discern both red flags as well as those hidden gems.
Yes. Yeah.
So we can almost train the AI at this point in time to spot red flags, but
Mm.
there's still something about the human experience that will read between the lines and recognize patterns. But
Yes.
but more importantly, in a candidate short market, we want to look for people that are not obvious fits that we can train and mold because A, they'll be better fits and B, they'll stay longer.
Yes, yes.
So I think that, again, my problem's not with the technology. My problem's in the way that humans use the technology.
Yes, and I think that's the root of all evil, isn't it? It's the way that the humans actually operate it. It's quite interesting. That first one where you're commenting how you get this score, it's a bit like a credit rating score. You don't
Yeah,
know what it is, and it's stuck
yeah.
with you for years. So that can be really damaging to
Yes.
that particular person. So any ideas on or any tips of how do they get around it, or what could be another option? Could it be actually asking for a face value, a face interview? Could it be perhaps taking a resume in? I know in the hospitality industry we've got that little bit of that opportunity for the human eye to check that
Yeah.
person out. And we always say when they come into reception, and I was only training a team last week, and the CEO said, "Hey guys, when you're there in reception and somebody brings that resume in, please put some points down on that front. Were they dressed smartly? How did they appear? Just because we've always said you need the attitude, you can train the skill, and so we've got that. But are there any ideas of how you could get around or stop being vetted by just that score, Kim, as a good
Yeah, I've been
employee?
thinking about this and I'm formulating a plan
Yeah.
is where I am. If you can connect with the hiring manager
Mm.
themselves. And so a lot of ads will, and by the way, advertising for roles, worst way to find people, worst way in the world to find people. But don't get me started on that. We'll be here for another 2 hours. Um, but if you can find the hiring manager, connect with them in some way,
Mm.
LinkedIn,
Yes.
Instagram, wherever they are, find them and
Mm.
start interacting with them.
Mm.
Because a lot of ads will only have apply through this portal.
Yes.
So you might apply through the portal, but then reach out to them and say, I've applied for your portal, but I really wanted to connect with you because
Mm.
not about how great you are, but your brand is exactly the type of brand that I want to align with because of your values, or I was in your restaurant,
Mm.
in Kansas City a few weeks ago and just had the most marvelous experience. And I can only imagine that that is a testament to how you train your people.
Yes.
And I'd love to be aligned with a brand like yours. So position it in what's in it for them, not how great you are.
Yes. Yes.
And so if you can find a way to connect with them on a personal basis, it's not going to be 100% by any stretch of the
No.
imagination. But those were the first thoughts that I had
Yes.
when my sister told me this story.
Yeah. No, I've been on LinkedIn, I think, for nearly 2 decades now. I feel like it was one of the first things I did, when it came out, is that you can make those wonderful connections with people or at least be seen on the radar. And I think that is
Yeah.
what's important. It's breaking through. As for the AI answering for the candidate, I always think to myself that as you rightly said, what's the impact going to be when you get there that first day
Yeah.
and you're sitting there going, "Oh, I really don't know what this is." So
Yeah.
just be honest, be
Yes.
yourself. And and
Yes.
and that's what's key. I've got one last question for you, Kim, and I'm sure we could talk all day about all these different things, and I'd love to have you back because the AI is certainly not going away. As you said, like what's happening this year is different to last year or even last month,
Yeah.
and then going for next year. You are the person that the Today Show and the AFR, Australian Financial Review, plus many other media outlets, when call upon when they need someone to make sense of AI for business leaders. And I do thank you for today for not talking in a whole lot of jargon and giving us some
Yeah.
real true insights to it, Kim. When a registered club CEO or a hotel general manager asks you where to start with AI, what do you actually tell them? Not the big picture answer
Yeah.
that they could
Yeah.
hear, but
Yeah.
what would be their first three steps, do you feel?
Yeah, so great question. The first step is there are three types of AI implementations, if you will. There's the big enterprise version. So that's where your, typically it's your IT department will come in with some specialists and automate some workflows. Those implementations are problematic. 95% of them fail at this point in time. So if you're in a position of decision, beware of that. And again, I can give you a white paper that walks you through all that. The second type of AI, not really implementation, but AI that the everyday people can use is what I call in-app AI. So if you use Salesforce, let's say, as a CRM, and you're, doing outbound sales or inbound customer service, or, uh, Salesforce has a fantastic embedded AI. So whatever program you're working on, and Copilot is the same, it's an in-app AI, whatever program that you're working on, when you see that little symbol, that little AI symbol, could be stars, could be diamonds, Microsoft has its own symbol. My friend Barry Honey says, just click that damn button. Just click that down button, see what it does. So start there. Start with the AI that you already have available to you.
Yes.
Then, and if you're working with a larger company, talk to your IT department about what you have access to and data security, because that is first and foremost. But there are a whole host of AI tools that you can use on your own. So what I like to say is look at your role. What do you find yourself doing again and again and again and again and again? Because that is in 2026, that is very likely something that can be automated easily with an off-the-shelf AI tool.
Yes.
So the first thing that you want to do is a job audit. What do you do on a repetitive basis that you can audit? And then how that you can automate? And then how do you go about automating? Well, you can ask your AI because, and it will tell you. And there are so many, like I said, I started talking about the difference between generative AI and agentic AI. There are so many agentic applications that we now have access to. In fact, I was having a conversation with Claude, which, if you don't know, Claude, if listeners don't know, Claude is, oh, me too. Claude is a direct competitor of OpenAI's ChatGPT, and I think it's a better product actually, and I like their values better. But I was having a conversation with Claude, and I was like, "How would you ... And I was going back and forth, and Claude just finally said, "Would you like me to just do this for you?" And I was like, yes. And it did. And it was to create a diagnostic. I have been going back and forth for years about how to create this diagnostic that I've had in my head. And Claude said, well, you could do this, you could do that. And then it finally said, do you want me to just do it? And I said, yes. And it did it in 3 minutes.
You think, how many sleepless nights have I been thinking about?
Exactly.
And look, I agree with you. I find Claude, I love the company's values, but also I find it doesn't just give you the answers.
Yes.
You've got to be talking to it. You've got to be seeking it out. I love how it questions you back. I do.
Me too.
I think that's phenomenal. I'll say, this is, I put it in there and then it will read through it. It goes, but Michelle, you've said 5 and you've actually listed 6. And then you've mentioned somebody's name, but are they actually that person in that company? And it really gets you questioning. You think, my goodness, it's a bit like having a school teacher with a red pen. And going, hey, just check this again, instead of going, oh, this is just phenomenal. And that's what I love about it, because even though it's there to help you, it's still your word, and it challenges you.
It's a sparring partner, which is the best use of AI. So the other thing that I can provide for your listeners is a list of my favorite AI tools. I update that every month. So happy to provide that as well.
Perfect. So before we finish up, could you, I'm going to put the links in there for that and also the white paper, Kim, but would you like to share with my wonderful listeners that, are global, and I know you speak at many conferences around the world, both in person and virtually, and help a number of large organizations internationally. Would you like just to share with us how they can connect with you, please, Kim?
Absolutely. All they have to do is remember my name, because I am the only Kim Seeling Smith on the planet. So Seeling Seeling, pronounced like up there, but spelt like feeling with an S. So Seeling. Kim Seeling Smith. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on my website. Everything is just my
Everywhere.
name. I'm everywhere. I'm everywhere.
As well as on the magazines and on television, as you said, again, next Thursday, you'll be on
Yes.
our televisions here in Australia. Thank you so much, Kim, for joining
Thank
us
you.
today. I've really enjoyed this conversation and just having you share it with authenticity, but in just no jargon and understanding about where we are going from here.
Excellent.
So thank you so much. It's been
My absolute pleasure. Always pleasure to talk to you, Michelle. Always.
take care.